Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and I'm excited to have XYPN member Ben Martinek, founder of Bonafide Financial, based in North Dakota, on the show today. Ben has a pretty awesome story. He started out with plans to become a priest and spent 4 years at a monastery in Kentucky. He ultimately decided to change course and started grad school focused on philosophy with the intention of getting his PhD and becoming a college professor. After evaluating career prospects, he decided to change course again and ended up becoming a truck driver along with his wife, and they put in over 900,000 miles in a truck while paying towards their $160,000 in debt. They eventually settled down, and he worked for a Thrivent firm selling on commission and found that he really wanted to focus on the advice side of the business. He started his own RIA back in 2015 and leveraged his truck driving skills to side hustle his way to success. We talked about some other money-making ventures they've done, one including making $80,000 in rent off rooms in their home before they had kids, which is just a crazy amount of money and such a cool story. This interview was a great look into how perseverance really does pay off, but it also takes time to create success for yourself. Are you the chief marketing officer of your RIA? Do you have a love-hate relationship with marketing? Do you understand the importance of marketing but have no idea where to start? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you need our free marketing funnel download. If you have a leak in your funnel, you could be spinning your wheels, missing opportunities, and gaining little traction. Use our free template to map your funnel and get a clear picture of your strategy. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/funnel to download the free template today. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/191. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Ben. Hey, Ben, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for being on.
Hey, Alan, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am. I'm excited because you have just an amazingly, I don't want to use the word bizarre loosely, but reading through your career path has just been awesome. It just sounds like it's been a fun ride. So I'm excited to learn more and to be able to dig into it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's plenty to share, a lot of good stories.
So just to give a quick high-level overview, where are you located? When did you start the firm and number of clients? And then we'll dig in from there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm located in Bismarck, North Dakota, one of the few members here within XYPN up in the Northland. I've got a fee-only practice, that I work entirely away from home or in home here from a home office. I've got about 25 to 30 clients. It kind of depends on what you want to include as the client count, because some of it's been transactional, most of it's on a retainer ongoing basis. But in terms of the retainer ongoing basis, it's about 25 to 30. And I suppose that's it. I work primarily with clients who are young professionals, young families, folks basically in their late 20s to early 40s.
Awesome. Cool. So let's talk about career paths. So your journey to becoming a financial planner, I'm assuming like many, this maybe wasn't the career path you thought you were going to take early on. So what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up earlier in your career?
Oh, gosh, that's a wide open question, Alan. There's a lot of things I thought I was going to be. Money certainly wasn't at the top of it, and financial planning wasn't at the top of it. Early on, I think I had always been interested in intellectual history, and so I went down the career path of philosophy. I just got really fascinated by the conversations we would have on the big ideas, the big questions, the deep provoking thought that's all associated with the philosophical endeavor. And so went after undergrad, decided to get a master's degree in philosophy, and was thinking of going on to get a PhD and eventually teach at a collegiate level. Be that leather chair, cardigan, pipe smoking of college professor.
Of course, I had one of those.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Oh, that would have been amazing. I mean, that very much speaks to me. So, I love the idea of that. But I think in grad school, I had a friend who was like, you really seem pretty handy in business. And I had grown up doing a lot of construction work within the family and was pretty just knowledgeable. And at the time, the real estate bubble, this was in the mid 2000s, was at its height. And he's like, I really think you should go into business and real estate and make a difference there. And besides, you're going to have a tough time finding a job in academia. Have you even looked to see how competitive the marketplace is? And I hadn't done any of that. I was just kind of, I don't know, disillusioned from the whole idea of making money. I just wanted to keep studying philosophy. And so when I started to do that market research, I was like, wow, this really would be hard actually for me to go and get a job. And I don't know where that's going to be. So maybe I should make a change. And I suppose that's the beginning of when I started to transition into the work I do now.
Now, I do want to circle back because there's a part of the story that you missed telling, which was what you were doing before you made the decision to go into academia.
Yeah, well, I mean, an interesting part of my background is I'm Catholic, and I felt really called to be a religious. So I entered into a monastery when I was young, around the age of 19, and continued with that. My undergrad was spent as a religious, as a monk. So I was under the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And it's kind of funny. My life has really been a complete opposite of that. When I was in religious life, we used to describe the vows as you don't have any money, you don't have a honey, and you have a boss. So poverty, chastity, and obedience. And now I've got money, I do have a honey, and I don't have any boss, right? So
you tried to go the opposite direction.
Yeah, I have. It's funny, but I still have a really nice beard, which is something I had started back in the time when I was in religious life. So that is kept for sure.
So where was the monastery at? Was it in the States?
It was, yeah. It was down in Kentucky, a small religious community of about 30, 35 guys. And, really it was a wonderful experience. I got to connect with everyone there really well. And I don't know, there was just a lot of encouragement, virtuous living. I mean, it was exclusively male. So there was some oddity in that at times. Not so much of it because you necessarily missed other women around as much as you would every now and again recognize. They're like, gosh, I haven't seen a lady in months, as I suppose as a matter of design. And I do think, something is lost in that from time to time, but there still was a really strong fraternity and solidarity and support of it. Yeah, it left a very strong mark in my life.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife's Catholic. Well, I am now Catholic, I guess I should say. So I joined the church as part of that. And when I think of monastery, I always think of beer making in Belgium.
Oh, there you go.
That's where the best beer comes from, is from the monks in Belgium. But yeah, I never think about like states-based monasteries. But obviously you have to go somewhere for training. So if you don't mind me asking, what ultimately led to the decision to not continue that direction and to really switch gears?
So the community specifically was really, what's the description? They were missionary in nature, and they would do what more or less would be described as revivals, parish missions from church to church. They had an element where they were pretty, you could be academically inclined, but it wasn't strongly encouraged. And so I think as I was going along in my own studies, that was becoming more and more prominent in my interest. And I just was seeing that in the long term, it wasn't going to be a good fit if that's what I wanted to pursue. So yeah, it was a good time, a wonderful 3 to 4 years with the community, but I decided I would rather pursue the doctoral studies instead. Well, at least that's what I was thinking at the time of transition. Yeah.
Sure. So you get in, you start cranking on academia. I too was met with the realization that maybe academia wasn't the greatest career choice of all time. And
sure.
you talk about having a boss. There's no more strict of a boss than the world of academia,
for sure.
And I think that includes being a priest. So then, make the transition. What did life look like after transitioning then into business?
Oh, well, I mean, it was kind of a story to get to there for sure. So when my wife and we ended up meeting early on in grad school. So she has a master's degree in theology, and I have one in philosophy now.
I can only imagine dinner conversations.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if you know this, but the shorthand version of somebody who studied philosophy and theology is filthy, right? You're a filthy person. So we would joke we would have filthy conversations, so kind of church humor, right? So anyhow, we would, we ended up realizing that we had a lot of student loan debt, I suppose, as we were preparing to get married. And we thought, oh my gosh, we need to do something about this. At least I was thinking that. I don't know, honestly, if it was as much at the top of her mind, but it was definitely at the top of my mind as I was running the numbers. And what's interesting is that her background, her family has done a lot of truck driving. And it's something I had always been attracted to. And I just thought, gosh, it'd be fun to drive one of those rigs and be out on the open road and go around. And so we were both thinking about this, and we thought, maybe we should just check into it. Maybe, who knows, maybe they'll let both of us drive the truck together. How fun would that be? And sure enough, not only would they allow it, like it's a prized commodity. The trucking industry really likes team truck drivers, especially husband-wife combos, husband-wife teams. And so, yeah, when we first got married, our plan was to pay down our student loan debt by becoming a team over the road truck drivers.
Yeah, and I saw something recently that I think it was Walmart that like truck drivers are starting at $70,000 or $80,000 a year now. I mean, it's just very high paying because they're struggling to find truck drivers. But it makes sense that they would like the pair because you keep each other awake, and I guess that means you can drive, for a lot longer since there's so many restrictions on that.
Yeah, you could do basically twice as much work with the same fixed overhead cost of operating the truck, more or less. And when you have higher security issues, you can get the freight there sooner. Like only the trucking company can charge more for the service. So you get paid quite a bit more actually as team truck drivers. I think, when we were at the height of it, we ran with two different companies over the course of 2.5 years, pay down that student loan debt. It wasn't just student loan debt we ended up paying off. We had about $160,000 worth of debt. We paid about 105 of that off in the course of that 2.5 year period. But yeah, it was pretty much a pretty large task. We basically almost everything that one of us was making was just completely going to the debt pay down, and just huge amounts. $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month were being applied, as much as we could push towards it, and we were living on the super cheap and eating like birds in the truck. To make it all work. But yeah, I think we probably topped off around 100,000 or so, 105 between the two of us working, which I felt like was a pretty quick increase, because when you first start driving as a truck driver, you barely make any money. I mean, it's next to nothing. But within probably 9 months, we were in a pretty decent pay.
That's awesome. So you didn't get paid as two, like you probably could have made more if you were each individually driving on your own, but then you're by yourself. So you maybe took a little bit of a hit for being in the same truck, but a lot more than, it's not like they were just paying one of you.
Right. Honestly, I think probably the difference from what you had suggested there earlier, some of that's, it's starting to be a few years since we were in the industry, and maybe things have just changed a little bit in terms of how much they're paying. But some of it, we just didn't, you didn't drive maybe as much as what that high-end number is shooting for. So you start to lose out on how many miles you can do. You can run in a month when you're coming home so often. And we didn't go home very often, but it was probably once every 3 to 5 weeks. And as little as it may seem, of still going home, it starts to disrupt how many miles you can put down on the road.
Oh, crazy. All right. Whole different world.
Right.
So I recognize that it's tough to spend a lifetime or a full career driving trucks. So you pay off a bunch of debt. You're rocking and rolling for a couple of years, and then what do you do?
Right. Well, we were listening to Dave Ramsey during that time. He was a big piece of keeping us motivated, on task, and focused as to what we were getting accomplished. And he was really expanding on some of the initial finance study that I had started when I was in grad school from my buddy who had gotten me turned on to Robert Kiyosaki and the whole literature of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So, Dave in a lot of ways has pretty strong differences of opinion, but, we started listening to Dave every day, and you listen to these phone calls and the struggles people are having. And, I mean, this was all right after the aftermath, too, of the financial recession, the meltdown. This is, 2009, 2010. And so you're just hearing story after story of some of the struggles people are going through. And, we really related to it. We listened 3 to 4 hours of Dave every single day for 5 days a week, and even would catch some of the replays over the weekend, along with the other stuff we had listened to on the road. So, I think over time, Dave introduced the idea of us becoming a certified financial planner, and the idea of helping people work with money and overcome some of the similar struggles we were going through just really appealed to me. I thought, this is it for me. I have a natural interest in finance, and helping people is something I've always been drawn to. Maybe this is where I should give my time and effort to.
So then how did you end up, I guess, deciding on where to settle down? You've been on the road nonstop for 2.5 years. You said going home once a month. It's sort of, you could be anywhere at that point.
Right. Well, I grew up in Indiana. My wife grew up in Ohio. We met in grad school in Eastern Ohio. But she had spent some time living out in Central Oregon and had some really good friends out there at the time that we got married. And so she convinced me that we should just relocate to Central Oregon. So the whole time that we were over the road, we were living out of Central Oregon as our home base, which was a ton of fun. Beautiful. I really love the Northwest, just a beautiful part of the country. Super enjoyable to drive around in a truck. But at that time, the place that we were living, Bend, Oregon, had a really high unemployment rate. mostly because it's just an area that everybody else wants to live in. And, they were just coming off of a big real estate boom and then crash. And there just wasn't the opportunity to find any work. So after being on the road for 2.5 years and still having a little more debt to pay off and not being able to find a job, we were like, well, we gotta go somewhere. And not seeing any great opportunities for where I was at or not being skilled in anything else, we were thinking, well, we'll just continue as truck drivers. And so at the same time, the oil boom was taking place here in North Dakota, which, we had never spent any time previously, no friends or family up in these parts. But we thought, well, maybe we'll just go to Bismarck and continue paying off the rest of our debt and get our finances all the way taken care of. And we'll just see where things go from there. So we decided to relocate really almost just as like an overnight decision from Central Oregon to Central North Dakota. And we've been living here ever since. But at the time that we made the switch, we were still listening to Dave Ramsey, and he had his endorsed local provider program. And so we got interested. We thought, we're finally at a position, maybe we should start having the conversation with a financial planner about how to invest and all that stuff. So I reached out to Dave's ELP here in Bismarck, and he heard a little bit of my story and just thought I'd be a good hire. So he ended up convincing me to come on board with his firm once we relocated in Bismarck.
So what year was that then that you started working as an advisor?
That would have been 2012. Yeah, February of 2012. So just about 7 years ago.
Okay. So what type of work were you doing? It's sort of traditional paraplanner, junior advisor type role?
A little bit. A lot of it was, eat whatever you kill. So, the hope was that I'd be able to bring in some business, have some connections here within the community. Even though we weren't from the area, we had a pretty prominent role to play within the Catholic community. The organization I was with was Thrivent Financial, which at the time was a Lutheran organization, and then it broadened its scope to just being broadly a Christian organization. And so I think he was hopeful that maybe I would be able to draw some Catholic business in over time. But, it was your typical Thrivent process is largely an insurance-based company with some managed funds and investments. They have their own mutual fund suite. But pretty much your conventional model of financial planning with the commissions, both on the investments and insurance side.
So how did that process go for you? And what, I guess, ultimately, what overall decisions did you make in career-wise because of that experience?
Well, it wasn't what I was expecting it to be. Like I was hearing all these interviews and conversations with what Dave was doing over those years. And I was thinking that I would have kind of the same kind of conversations with folks and that really we would be getting compensated in some way for having that conversation, more almost like a therapist or a psychologist of some sort. I feel kind of silly to even admit this, but it wasn't until I was within Thrivent for a few months and before I fully realized how I was going to be compensated. And it was just strictly off a commission and, it was just whatever business we were able to write, really primarily with their insurance products. And I was just kind of surprised that that's how the business ran. And so for the longest time, I ran with the fellow because I respected him. I thought very well of him. He had a good business. He was a good advisor. I didn't think he was overly influenced by the commission angle, but it just wasn't something that I was able to get excited about. And, at the end of an 18-month period, and my sales weren't quite where the company wanted them to be. And they were just saying, you need to be doing more sales seminars and presentations. And I was more inclined to want to take the academic approach and study more and just be a really well-rounded advisor. I just thought, this isn't the place for me. This isn't working out. So at the time, we were actually having some struggles with infertility, and we had been trying to have children, but things weren't working there. And it was looking like we're going to have to maybe have some surgeries, and, the financial planning wasn't taking off. So we decided that, I would stop my work in that and go back to being a local truck driver, find an outfit here locally and run freight, and maybe or maybe not start my own business and pick it up from there. But yeah, it was just time for a career change to start producing more income.
So you start driving trucks. Were you doing that full-time or part-time?
It was full-time. It was full-time. But right before I had made the switch, I was being introduced to NAPFA and Family Advise. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but I actually was introduced to you through NAPFA Genesis. Someone was like, hey, there's this Alan Moore fella. He's really kind of a mover and shaker. You ought to give him a call and talk with him and see what's going on. I thought, okay, well, not knowing anything, right? I'll talk to you. So you had told me back in, this would have been October of 2013. And you were like, oh yeah, no, you don't have to do financial planning through commissions. Like that's not good for anybody. Why don't you do family advice and charge hourly, or do financial plans? And I thought, oh my gosh, this sounds so much more like the way I would want to set up my business. And so I was really interested and intrigued by what you were offering already in your own business with Serenity, and I left the company with the idea that if I were to go back into this business, it was going to be as a fee-only financial planner and getting my CFP marks first.
Yeah, that would have been, I believe you said that, so late 2014, so right before, or late 2013, so right before we launched XY Planning Network, actually. So you were one of the 100 phone calls that I like to talk about that I had in the year prior to launching XY, because it just had so many calls with folks like yourself where there was either just a lack of knowledge, even that fee only existed, that you could get paid for advice, which is what many of us wanted, and it just seemed to make sense, but that business model wasn't well known to a lot of folks, or folks that were working inside of fee-only planning firms that really just wanted to work with young people and just didn't have a path to do so. And that's really where XY came from. So thank you, because I should credit you and the other folks that I had conversations with for sparking the idea.
Well, I can say that all I can say is the pleasure is all mine, because when I ended that conversation, I was very enthusiastic about what the future could hold and was really thinking that was going to be the place for me. But in the meantime, I actually had to get through kind of a quick learning cycle of how to drive a truck again. I hadn't driven one in about 18 months, which doesn't seem like a terribly long period of time, but running with a big rig, especially up in a winter setting, that was a little bit of a learning curve. I'd gotten rusty. And then I was running freight here too, right at the height of the oil patch and the boom that's going on. And well, not to go into too much of the details of that, but that was just kind of a crazy time period to be learning how to drive truck and make deliveries. It was, there was more work than we could possibly do in a single day. And so for the next 6 to 9 months, I was just overrun with the job and work and getting things straightened out and making it all work for everybody. But yeah, it was a tough 6 to 9 month period for me.
Yeah, talk about a difficult transition. So at the time, were you getting your CFP, or were you working on some stuff for the business? Or were you just focused on driving trucks at that point?
It really was just focusing on driving truck and really taking care of my wife and trying to see what we could do to resolve the infertility issues that we were going through. It wasn't until probably April, so this would have been 2014, which happened to be the same time that XYPN was launching, but I wasn't really paying attention to any of that right at the time just because I was so overtaken by the truck driving work that I was doing. But in April, I was like, I really do want to start my own business. Let's start the study for the CFP. And so I, enrolled up with Kaplan and took the next year or so of studying, part-time, and eventually sat and passed the exam in July of 2015. But what I was able to do, this was really just a blessing all the way around, is that I had demonstrated my value quite a bit to the company and was able to resolve or take care of some big sources of stress on one route in particular that was going up into the oil patch. And I really became an unofficial manager of the route, where I just took on all the freight that was coming through there and just made their life easier. And so they only allowed me to have a work schedule where I only had to work Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They were long days. I'd work 14 to 15 hours at a time, but I'd have the rest of the time, the rest of the week, to be able to work on the business, finish up the CFP exam, and just get things going.
Those are really long days. I think I would just be sleeping on the days off. So you were getting the CFP, getting the business up and running. So when did you officially found the business?
It would have been July. I joined XYPN in July. I think the business got registered in August, and then it became official within the state in late September of 2015.
Okay. So then how was sort of starting the business, especially whenever you have, a full-time job that you're working 3 days a week, but still working full-time hours on the side? How was that process of getting started?
It was a long process, Alan. It took, I think it honestly just took a lot of dedication and commitment on my part to make it happen and just drive. I enjoyed the work driving truck, especially as time went along and the oil patch started to subside and it wasn't as busy as it was. It started to be a pretty nice job in a lot of ways, but it was just something I couldn't see myself doing for the rest of my life. And I really believed in what I was seeking out to accomplish with fee-only planning. I wanted to provide this alternative to the Northland up in these parts. There just isn't a lot of fee-only financial advising, and I don't know, just staying committed to what I wanted to accomplish. The early years especially were difficult. It's not just working full time. I've been having to grow the business part time. I didn't officially become a CFP until September of 2017 due to the work experience requirement, and so I just didn't have a natural marketing funnel to even make people aware that I was there. And so there was just some struggle in picking up and finding clients. I would grab them here and there over time, but yeah, those first couple of years was just a challenge. But thankfully, ever since I did finally become certified in September of 2017, it's gotten considerably easier because people just find me through the different associations I'm a part of and reach out, and some decide to move forward, and I've, bit by bit, have been able to grow a business out of that.
So remind me, when did you stop driving trucks, or are you still driving trucks as part of all this?
No, that's a good question. So I continued to drive truck for a while. It wasn't until actually January of 2018. I had the ability, just because of the value that I had delivered to the company, to kind of demand just how many days a week I was going to work. So at one point it was 3 days a week, and that lasted for, I don't know, probably 18 months or so. But it eventually reduced down to just 2 days a week, and then even down to just 1 day a week. So a very part-time level. And sometimes I actually would pick up more days just as things would come and go with the business and our own needs at home financially and needing to pick up more money. But after passing the certified financial planning exam, I decided I should pursue the enrolled agent. That was something that was really encouraged to me after the first XYPN conference that I attended there in Charlotte. Just had a lot of folks who were like, tax planning makes sense. Tax preparation makes sense. It's another way to make money and connect with people. And folks need taxes done. It's an easy way to provide real tangible advice and value, especially if you're able to get things resolved or find past mistakes. So I ended up getting convinced that, the next step for me is to become an enrolled agent. And so I did do that, and I started work with H&R Block. So I was running the business, and I was, still driving truck and also starting to do tax work all at the same time at one point. This would have been the spring of 2016. But that started the process of me deepening my tax chops. And so eventually, as time went along, I got to be good enough tax-wise that I was able to get picked up with an accounting firm that initially started out with XYPN, but he went off on his own. That's John McCarthy and McCarthy Tax Preparation, or Advisor Facing Tax. And so he eventually offered me an opportunity to work in a regular full-time basis for him on the part-time. I suppose that's the best way to put that, right? So that was really the opportunity for me to finally stop driving truck and move into financial services 100%.
So it lets you replace sort of, it was another side hustle, but it lets you replace one for the other that is at least working from home and doing stuff in financial services.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. So I'm still not at a point where I'm 100% in the business, although things are growing more and more. I would imagine, but it's not going to be much longer that I would need. I think I'll be 100% into my business now, bona fide, within another year, 2 at most at this point.
Okay, awesome. So talk to me about starting the business. So obviously starting a business is hard when it's really nice when you have income coming from another location, but it also means you have a distraction and it's and time and energy are being spent on other things. So how was it starting the business and just talking about the growth of the business from a just sort of client income perspective and how that's gone?
Yeah, good questions. So, in the early years, it wasn't that first year when I first launched, I spent so much of my time just putting the basics of the business together. Just what would the process be, the onboarding, what would the meetings be like? Truthfully, I was just like, let's just see if I can't find somebody to work with and maybe we can help figure it out together. Not so much I would have that conversation with the client, but over time, after meeting with folks, I'd get a better sense even of just how the meeting flow would go. Because there wasn't a mentor directly necessarily to work with, and although I would reach out into the forums and talk with people, you still at the end of the day were left to kind of figure this out at that moment with the client. So, yeah, honestly, I think it was just tough. It was just first few years there wasn't a lot that took place. It was really still a lot of time of deepening my confidence in providing financial advice and feeling like I knew enough to lead someone confidently that when I would meet with them, they would pick up on that. A lot of this is money at the end of the day, that certainly the management of money is a confidence game. And I think in the early years, I suffered from not having enough confidence. But as time has gone along and I've got more years under my belt, that's something that thankfully has gone away.
Awesome. So sort of walk me through year over year sort of growth from a client perspective. It sounds like things have sort of started ramping in the last year or 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's right. So probably the first year, I think I only had 3 or 4 clients. Some of that was on an ongoing basis. Really just 1 or 2 stuck it out with me. A couple others were good friends, but they were just looking for something more on a transactional nature. The following year, I think I had maybe 6, 7 clients that came through the door. Most of that still a little bit of it's probably 50-50, I would guess, of some retainer clients, some of it transactional. But once I had gotten the marks there as a CFP, things picked up quite a bit. So last year in 2018, I would guess it's 8 to 10 clients, maybe as much as 11. that had come through. Almost all of those have been retainer clients, not nearly as many on the transactional level. And then so far this year, I mean, I'm off to quite the start. I probably have 4 to 5 clients that have signed on board already. And as I've been working through and just getting my name out there and connecting with people, I think some of financial planning for folks is just, are you going to be around? I don't want to start advising or at least moving money for you to manage if in a couple of years it looks like you're going to go and pursue something else. And so as I've been able to kind of prove that, no, I'm in this. This is really what I'm all about. This is what I'm going to do. I think people who are on the outskirts, on the periphery, have started to come forward and say, hey, I've got some questions. Can you help me out?
So you said when you got the CFP, things sort of turned a little bit. Obviously, the CFP is not magical in that sense. It is kind of funny that for many people, it is a turning point. And we talk some about sometimes it's confidence, sometimes it's the fact that you also stop doing the side gig, which makes you look more quote unquote legit to people that you're in full business, which is funny because that side hustle is the only reason you can stay in business.
Right. It was that way for you for the early years. Yeah.
Even if it looks like it's a negative. So where have you seen success in terms of clients coming to you? So, you said the CFP helped. How do clients find you at this point?
It's mostly, it's a combination of things. So we've started to do on the local level, we've done what are called wine and cheese nights here at the house. And so we have, a pretty established circles of friends. My wife works here at the church, at the Cathedral of the Holy Spirit, and is really well connected in those ways and knows a lot of people. And so we'll send out invites to, hey, if you want to come over, we'll treat you to some wine and cheese and give a little financial presentation on some subject, whether it's insurance or student loans or taxes or investments. And so some folks have come just naturally through that, having the opportunity to kind of demonstrate myself. So your typical seminars that you would see in financial planning. And some of it's word of mouth there on that local level too. But I would say the bulk of the business up to this point is really through organizations like XYPN, NAPFA, the Feeling Network, the CFP board. I would guess 70% of my clients so far have come through that. And some of the benefit in that is that they're just, it's good or bad in different ways, but there just isn't a lot of other NAPFA advisors up here. There's just 2 of us in the entire state. So if someone does come to us through NAPFA specifically, and the other advisor actually doesn't even work with people who are young. So if they're a young client, there is just me, quite honestly, for somebody to choose from. So unless I don't know, come across and just give them bad vibes or something, the likelihood that they're going to come forward business-wise is pretty high.
Yeah, sometimes we joke that location is no longer a niche, but it is in some cases when you're in the Dakotas or Montana, because I'd actually have to pull this up. But when I moved to Montana back 5-6 years ago now, I was the only firm here. Now we have a couple of XYPN members here, but it's I think we only have I'm pulling up the website. There's only one listed on NAPFA's website in Montana, because I think the firms we have here either aren't part of NAPFA yet or are actually headquartered somewhere else. So we just had an advisor move here that's headquartered in Georgia, actually, but he lives here, so it's not listed as the headquarters. So you pull up the NAPFA website, which generates a lot of awesome leads, and Wyoming's got 1, Montana's got 1. North Dakota, 2.
There you go.
That. Welcome to a niche called no one else is in your area, which is awesome.
Right. That's basically how things have been able to work for me. I do only work with young folks, which I appreciate. I think that's just the right fit for me. So if you are young and you're looking for assistance, and if you already have come across the value of a family planning approach, then thankfully there isn't a lot of competition to that next tier, but I have to explain why I'm better than the next NAPFA advisor, or how we could be a better fit. I'm the NAPFA advisor. So thankfully, I don't know, maybe we'll drive a lot of competition this way over time. I wouldn't mind seeing more NAPFA advisors up here. I think the area would be better served by that. But at least right now, I've been able to benefit from being an early adopter for that.
So 70% are coming from there. I am curious about these wine and cheese nights, because this is something that, I hear some advisors doing. So do you, how often are you doing these, and how many people will come for a wine and cheese night at the house?
Yeah, it's probably half a dozen to a dozen folks who are coming, and it's probably once every 2 months. We're trying to do them 3 to 4 times a year. Not so much during the summertime, just because nobody wants to come indoors for sure. I mean, maybe if we do a picnic, brats and beers or something, so that would attract some folks. But I think it's, we have a nice little home, and we enjoy hosting, and we bought some specialty wine glasses and cheeses and even the knives and all that stuff for it. And it just is a nice way to connect with folks. So, I've seen some business from it. It certainly hasn't. The biggest draw of my business has been more with so the name, I don't know if I had shared this with you earlier. The name of the business is Bona Fide Finance, which is ultimately Latin for in good faith. And I've picked up quite a few folks who are of an academic nature as time has gone along here, who I think that's just communicated well in the website and a little bit in my bio. So even of the folks who will reach out to me on XYPN, I mean, one of my tags is that I like to work with intellectuals or academics, something like that. And so people will pick me up for those reasons. So it's getting to be, I would say, half or better the book of business are PhDs or MDs or JDs.
Do you have a large university nearby? Just because PhDs, obviously tied to universities typically.
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a Catholic university to the south side of town that I am connected in with too. And so some of the folks who have attended the wine and cheese nights are from the local Catholic university, and they've actually given me the opportunity to be able to teach a business ethics course to MBA students. So it's a master's level, and that's been actually really fun to go back into the philosophical studies and revisit those conversations. So there's a little intensive 5-week ethics course that's taught here on an ongoing basis that I'm able to step into once every now and again and connect with other people that way. But yeah, some of the local PhDs are certainly through the university, but not all of them. I have folks from across the country, who reach out. I would say about half my book of business is here in North Dakota, and then the other half is just spread out across the country.
Interesting. So because people are finding you online and using websites like XY Planning Network and NAPFA, why do you feel like there are folks, why would an advisor outside the state choose you over another advisor? Like, what do you feel like is your secret sauce, the thing that they're seeing from you that they're coming to you for help as opposed to a local advisor or another advisor? They're willing to work virtually. It opens up the door. There's, thousands of advisors they could go work with. Right.
I think the academic angle is definitely a solid selling point. Some of it is student loans. I've been studying with the materials offered through Heather Jarvis and Jance Hoffman. So the CSLA Institute that's recent here, they've got a new designation that they've rolled out. And so I actually signed up into that coursework here probably 6 months ago or 4 months ago. And I've been deepening my student loan chops, and I'm holding myself out as someone who can advise on student loans. And so, academics is not uncommon for you to see a fair amount of student loan debt. So that would be of interest for somebody who's young. Honestly, I think some of it's kind of the salt of the earth appeal. I've drove truck for a long time. I've done construction work. I like to do woodworking as a part-time hobby. I just recently bought a sailboat and plan to fix it up. And I enjoy smoking a pipe tobacco and just all these fun, at least fun things for some of us. So I think people see that in the bio and they're just they're attracted to it.
Fair enough. It is one of those things about being authentic. And we talk a lot about niche markets, obviously, and huge fan of them, just because it helps you define who you want to work with and who wants to work with you. But I also encourage, advisors to be authentic, be your authentic self and tell people who you are, because there is an advisor there's a client out there that wants to work with an advisor that is a truck driving, tobacco, pipe smoking kind of guy, right? And there aren't thousands of those guys out there that are available to work with. So it is an awesome opportunity to be able to, again, hold yourself out and be authentic in who you are, and the right clients will find you.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's just more and more the case. And, I'm getting better and better about getting my name out there and connecting with others or doing different presentations. And, truthfully, it hasn't been easy, and it's taken a lot of work and time, but I just like it. It's fun. It's fun to see the growth. It's fun to see things tick up. And just gives me something to do, So I don't know. My plan is to be with the business for really forever, for the rest of my life. And I just have a long-term plan with this. So even though the early years haven't been as exciting as I would have wanted them to be, and things haven't grown as quickly as I would have liked to have seen, it is coming together. And I'm not looking out in just in the next couple of years where's the business going to be. It's more like, where's it going to be at in 10 to 15 years? And I'm just very, very confident that, within that time frame, and I think it's going to be much sooner than that, but within 10 to 15 years, I'm going to have a very successful financial planning business, and we'll be up and running. Now, in terms of just how far it goes, this is definitely more of a lifestyle business for me than it would be an enterprise. But I'm interested in, as time goes along, as I continue to attract more clients, I'm certainly interested in adding other advisors out there. I mean, I think people deserve, they're well served to get good financial advice, and Lord knows there's plenty of other ways in which it comes to them in a conflicted manner.
For sure. So, try to think what you mentioned a couple of various side hustles, some with the truck driving, that sort of thing. I know that I've heard about a couple others as well. So the one that piqued my interest was, in my notes, I had that you were doing some work, renting out your house. So tell me about like generating income on, I don't know, being an Airbnb host.
Almost. I mean, my wife and I are just unconventional. Maybe I just hit the lottery marrying my wife, and she's been willing to put up with all these ideas that come in my mind and ways to generate income. There aren't too many brides who would be willing to go and drive an 18-wheeler and deal with backing into docks and living in truck stops and all this stuff. So, I mean, we've got a pretty incredible wife. I mean, she can back an 18-wheeler up and drive her through all the gears and all this stuff. So it's just awesome. But yeah, when we bought the house, we were doing it somewhat at the height of the market here. So it was a little concerning, like, are we overpaying? And just as the way for us to handle it financially, because I still at the time was with the prior financial firm with Thrivent, and the money just wasn't great. It was enough for us to get the house, but it would have been tight to keep it. And we were like, gosh, there's just all these rooms. This is somewhat of the Robert Kiyosaki throwback. There's just like all these rooms here that we could be using. And there was a rental shortage. And I'm like, let's just rent them all out. So, it's a 4-bedroom house with an office space. And we actually had all 3 of the other bedrooms and then converted the office space into a bedroom and had all 4 rooms rented out at one time. And we're producing quite a bit of money rental income wise as a way to subsidize and cover the cost of the business and just keep things going.
That's awesome. And those are the types of things where, you can get creative, or especially as you're starting the business, you're paying down debt, you're doing all of these things. Like, it seems like, $200 for a room or $400 for a room. What does that really matter, in the grand scheme of things? But it sounds like that it generated quite a bit of income for you over the course of several years.
It did, honestly, in total. I mean, we rented it out. It just came to an end here recently. For the longest time, we were just, we had kids. I mean, we have 2 daughters now, and the oldest is 3.5. And we were still renting our rooms up until just late October of 2018. And some of that wasn't because we needed the money. We just enjoyed having other people. I mean, a lot of them were folks that we knew in some capacity. They're friends of friends who were looking for a place. So it wasn't anything that was quite as open as an Airbnb, or we don't know who's coming into our home. I don't think my wife would have gone for that. But, they were long-term arrangements. We had one person who's a very good friend of ours live with us for 4 years. And then we had a few others live with us for 2 years at a time. A couple others live for 3, 6, or 9 months, something like that. But yeah, we kept it pretty booked and pretty busy. I mean, over that 7-year period, I think it's 80, maybe as much as $100,000 of income. I actually added up all the numbers, but it got to be quite a bit of money.
$80,000.
Yeah, that's right.
It's huge. That is a ton of money.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a big help.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, yeah, holy crap. That is a lot of money. And like I said, like a few $100 here, a few $100 there, doesn't seem like much. And then all of a sudden you look back, you're like, wow, we were able to bring in $80,000. And where would you be today if you were currently $80,000 poor?
Right.
I don't know, but you may not have a business, right?
We wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit with the overall service model. So I'm a new client. I come to you and I'm interested in financial planning. Walk me through your sort of typical fee structure and typical service model for the clients that are coming to you. Yeah.
So it's 2 things that I offer. It's either a transactional service or an ongoing service. So I'm always looking to see, what are you looking to receive from this financial planning engagement? I would say right now it's about 80% of the clients that are coming through are wanting some sort of ongoing service. And then, 10, 20% are looking really for just a transactional topical type of service. So without going into the details of the transactionals too much, I mean, one is just more topically related transactional wise, and another one is still a full review of their financial situation, maybe what you would describe as a financial plan with them then left to implement. But the expectation isn't, now that we've gone through everything, there isn't any expectation that we continue meeting or continue to work together. It's really just come and go as you please. For the other clients, the bulk of my clientele, it is on that ongoing service. And then I have 3 criteria that I utilize. I actually use this too for the transactional service, but I base the fee off of what the client's current net worth is, what their current household income is, and then how frequently they're wanting to meet. And so I have some arrangements where we meet as much as once every month. I haven't had too many clients take me up on that offer, but a few actually have. Most of the clients will go with the quarterly arrangement, so that's where we meet once a quarter, obviously. And then some of them, they already feel like they're pretty well up to speed in terms of their financial situation, but they would like to have somebody that they're meeting with on a regular basis just to check in and make sure that things are looking good and ask questions and bounce ideas off of. And that's on an annual arrangement. And so, how frequently I meet with the client will affect then that final criteria of determining what the price is going to be that they'll pay on a monthly basis.
So what is like a typical fee range then? So where are your lower end clients and your higher end clients?
Yeah, so it's broken up on the first tier is, household income less than 150,000. Next tier is 150 to 300,000, and then the third tier is 300,000 or more for income. And then net worth, I think it's 250 for the first tier, anything less than 250. So that's including not just investment accounts, but the equity in your home or other rental properties. The next one would be 500,000, I think, and then maybe 500,000 to $1 million. I'd have to actually look at the chart to see how it all breaks down on the net worth side. So then I have it set up fee-wise. So it's $175 a month right now for that quarterly rotation for the first year with clients. And I've got a lot of folks who are really pursuing this where we'll meet throughout that first year on a quarterly rotation, a couple of meetings up front just to get on board, and then we move into quarterly meetings. So somewhere around 5 to 6 meetings in total that first year at $175 a month. And then the client then has the opportunity, if they want to reduce it to an annual arrangement, let's say they just don't see the need to continue to meet quarterly, then there's a reduction in fees.
Okay. So you really are basing it based on number of meetings, where some advisors just say, like, I don't know, meet as often as you want, client, you're paying me the same. What drove that decision to charge based on meetings? I'm not sure I've heard of that one before.
I think some of it, I've struggled here a lot is that sometimes how expensive financial planning can be, especially in my opinion, for how little an advisor will do. And I do think there's value in working with an advisor, and I definitely think there's value in managing a person's assets. And if sometimes, as you're fond of saying, if the right advice is to do nothing at all, it's invaluable to be able to have the advisor there to tell you that. But I've struggled, asset management wise, especially if you're adopting a passive only approach, largely buy and hold. We're not going to do any market timing or adjustments on valuations. To charge somebody $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 a year to have that once a year meeting and basically do very little for them, it just feels too high for me. And so I wanted it to be based a little more on just how much time am I actually meeting with them and getting their questions. I think a change I might be doing here in the upcoming years, or maybe even sooner, would be that if you have a certain income amount, in my experience, the higher the income, the more often the client wants to meet, or honestly, the more they probably should be meeting, just because there tends to be just that much more going on in their financial situation that even if a client wanted to only meet once a year, I would still hold them at that quarterly fee, just because I think there's the likelihood that they'll want to continue to meet. So I do think that I might have some thresholds or base amounts that if your net worth is of a certain amount, if your assets are a certain amount, if your income's of a certain amount, this is going to be what the minimal fee is going to be. But I haven't implemented that right now. So even if somebody didn't decide to move from a quarterly to an annual meeting rotation, the plan is to decrease the fee.
Okay, fair enough. I said, there's so much experimentation in all of this. I think it's one of the potentially frustrating things. It's liberating and frustrating at the same time, as we have moved away from just AUM fees, which is really simple, right? We charge 1% for the year and that's it, and we'll bill it quarterly. I mean, the hardest decision was like in advance or in arrears.
Right.
That we do have a lot more flexibility, really custom cater the fee schedule. Maybe we spend too much time talking about it instead of just doing whatever and moving forward with it. But we really can design a fee schedule that really works for us, and for our ideal client, which is just awesome. So yeah, I don't think there is no right answer. I know that part. It's just about figuring out what's the best way to do it, and moving forward, and not, quite honestly, just trying not to spend too much time thinking about it.
Well, I would agree with that, Alan. It's such a nebulous, intangible service. The value that we do, it's really hard to peg down what exactly should the fee be. I mean, getting everyone properly insured, for example, is super important and a big value for the client. But if they never need the insurance, if the benefits never kick out, because thankfully nothing bad ever happened to them. I mean, what's that worth? I mean, it certainly has value, but what's the right amount of value for making sure you're properly insured, for example? Like, I don't know how you define that. So I like the arrangement that I have now. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the final one, but I stick with forever. But it's probably the third revision of where I stand currently, and I think I'm getting happier with it with each revision.
So, things are, I'll say the snowball is starting to roll. You've been in business 3.5, going on your 4th year now. It sounds like you really started focusing on the business in the last year or two full time and sort of transitioning over as income goes up and some of the time spent on the side hustles has gone down. What are some of the big initiatives that you're thinking about and working towards maybe this year and next year that listeners might be interested in?
Well, I think the angle for me this year is marketing. The last several years is just getting to a point that I feel really confident in what I do and what I have to offer and the value, and just knowing that I am an expert now in this space. That's not something I would have been even all that comfortable saying even just a few years ago. I would have felt very much like I'm a kind of an apprentice or a wannabe or somebody who has these ambitions, but it's not. I haven't seen enough maybe financial situations where I could really feel confident about telling you exactly what to do for your circumstance. And that's just not the case any longer. I've thankfully been able to see, dozens, maybe even hundreds of financial situations at this point of all across the spectrum and board. So moving forward, I think that lack of confidence has hampered me some, but I'm, at a point now where, we're making money and it's profitable, and, the work that I'm doing on the side is worthwhile, but would be better done through the business. And so it's just getting my name out. I can't say I have any large initiative. There's some offerings made through XYPN, like the XYPN media request, that are available. Planning to hit up on those particularly. We've considered doing some blogging. I don't know if that's really the right way for us to market, just because I think I'd rather do a video format. But nonetheless, I mean, the point being is this year the plan is to be knocking on doors and asking for referrals and feeling comfortable that having somebody meet with me is the right answer for them.
Yeah, you hit on a great point there where, listeners probably get tired of hearing me say this, but don't should on yourself, right? Yeah. Don't say, well, I should be blogging or I should be podcasting. What works for you? I'm sure I should be writing more according to a lot of people, but I'm just not a good writer, and it takes me a long time and it's time consuming. That's why I do a podcast, because this is a better medium for me and just my personality and schedule and all that sort of thing. So yeah, you got to do what works for you, and also what your avatar or prospective client will consume. I've said this a couple times in podcasts before, but worth reiterating. We view our target market for the podcast, in addition to XYPN members that are running their business and want to hear from their peers. We really view it as the ideal person is probably an associate advisor, not happy in their business or not happy with the job that they're in. They're commuting. And so they're listening to the podcast on Wednesday mornings, right? Because by Monday, you're like, okay, maybe I can do this. And by Friday, you're sort of checked out for the weekend. So it's like, all right, Wednesday's a good day to drop it.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that's it's not the most scientific thing that we came up with, but that's our market, right? Our market doesn't watch videos. They listen to podcasts, in our opinion. So that's what we went with. So there is no should. It's just do what works for you, and it'll resonate with the market that you're looking to target, which is what you're looking for.
Right. Well, and thankfully, I'm having a lot of success with folks coming through the resources that I have, as I had mentioned earlier. And so I feel the need that I need to be getting my name out there, and I definitely am. I've been on the local level. In addition to the wine and cheese nights, and making just part of your tried and true connections with the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary and different resources. Although I'm not even for sure that's the right way to go, because that doesn't always attract a younger clientele. But I don't know. It's on my agenda this year to keep thinking about what can we do to let people know about who I am and what I do and how I can help them.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a fun ride either way, because nothing in your life has been boring. So
that's right.
as evidenced by this interview. So, looking back over the last couple of years and thinking about, who you were, 3, 5, 7 years ago, if you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, one thing that you've learned that you wish you had known then, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
I think perseverance is just what comes to mind, and not to fret the small stuff, and to just keep that long-term vision. Being self-employed, as I have been now for 3.5, it'll be 4 years this summer, is emotionally volatile. Some days you're on the top of the world and everything is just wonderful and perfect, and you just think it's going to all break open tomorrow, and bring out the bottle of bubbly and let's celebrate, right? And the next day it's like you don't even know why you're still doing this, and maybe you should just stop and do something else altogether. It really takes a toll on you over time. And so I don't know. I think that what I would want to reassure and tell myself in the early years is just we learn by doing, and so just keep doing. Just keep getting out there, keep doing it, stay at it, and trust that you're going to get better, and the business is going to get better, and you're going to get the hang of this.
Fair enough. Our guest last week said something that I thought was very wise, and it was, well, what piece of advice would I give myself that I would actually have listened to? Because and I thought that was such a funny point, because so many times we think about, oh yeah, what I wish I'd known, but if I go back and told you that at the time, you probably wouldn't have actually listened to it. But what you just said, I think everyone actually would. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and share your career path and story of starting the firm. And it sounds like it's going to be an exciting next year or two as things get rocking and rolling. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Are you the chief marketing officer of your RIA? Do you have a love-hate relationship with marketing? Do you understand the importance of marketing but have no idea where to start? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you need our free marketing funnel download. If you have a leak in your funnel, you could be spinning your wheels, missing opportunities, and gaining little traction. Use our free template to map your funnel and get a clear picture of your strategy. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/funnel to download the free template today. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.